So yeah, thanks everyone for coming along to the client creation kind of impromptu masterclass. Chris and I decided to just do this, I think like a day ago. We spoke about it and we just felt that we wanted to get together a group of people and just look at client creation and what you can do to help create more clients in your business, potentially raise your fees and make more impact. All things that I think all of us want to do in our life. But I'm really curious. What are you guys here for? What are the things that you're curious about? What are some things that you'd like to know today? If you just wouldn't mind typing in the chat, what? Hey Sarah, nice to see you here. What is it that you'd like to get? Oh, looks like Siri. I was talking to her. She popped on my screen. I meant Sarah, not Siri. Siri, go away. Um, So, guys, what do you want to get from today? What are some of the things that you're hoping to learn, or you're hoping to work on, or hoping to get better at in your business as a coach, or maybe have questions about becoming a coach? What are you guys here for? Just type in the chat. What is it that you'd like to get from today?
And welcome, Marcel. Good to have you here. Welcome aboard. And just to share some of the inspiration for some of the other reasons why you might be here would be potentially finding more of your authentic voice around how do you resonate with clients. That's one of the big things that we've really discovered at a deeper level is how do you resonate? How do you attract people organically? How do you magnetize people? All the way through, you might be confused about, what strategy should you be using to attract clients? Should I be on Instagram, or should I have an email list? There's a whole lot of questions that sometimes we get caught up in this game. So there's everything from the strategy to the mindset to maybe the deeper spiritual dimension of how we actually manifest and attract things into our lives. So yeah, feel free to share what would be a great use of our time today from your point of view. What would be useful and helpful for you guys?
All right, we got a couple of things here. So Abhishek said to learn about the journey of starting out as a coach, who I need to become, and what skills I should build to scale to six-figure clients. Cool. And when you say six-figure clients, you mean like 100K a year? What does that mean? Just if you can clarify that for me, or are you talking about just in general in your business, doing six figures in your business in 1 year?
Yeah, it could be charging clients up to six figures, solving a problem that is worth that much to them.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, great. All right. And so Lydia says to know about starting the coaching journey. Great. Sarah, here for everything you guys just spoke about. This is so perfect for me right now. Super grateful. Wonderful to have you here, Sarah. Nice to see you again. Robert, I'd love to hear about creating clients in consciousness. Cool. That is something that is an I would say an advanced way of looking at client creation, but it is really how it happens. So we'd love to touch on that. Heidi, I love hanging around people on the same page. I learn a lot and see and feel more congruent on my path. Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you here, Heidi. And Nina said, I would be interested in how to manifest and attract clients organically. Great. Now, just a show of hands, give me a thumbs up if you're already working with clients as a coach on a paid level. So just give me a thumbs up in the emoji if you are already working with clients on a paid level. Okay, good. And can you guys do the smiley face if you guys are a coach already, but are still working towards getting clients on the paid level? So you're already a coach, but you haven't necessarily gotten some paying clients yet. All right. And give me a thumbs up if you are brand new to this journey, brand new to coaching, and brand new to client creation. Yeah, cool. All right, good. So good to know where everyone's at. Hey, Manpreet, nice to see you. Not see you, but nice to see you in the room. Sarah King, smiley face. Okay. So basically, what we want to touch upon, I actually liked Abhishek's question because I think it's relevant to everyone here, which is who do I need to be a coach and to start developing the skills? What are the skills that I need? And then how do I work towards scaling up to kind of even signing large clients as big as 6 figures? That kind of the scope of that question covers pretty much everything. Even if you're an advanced coach, you're probably asking the scaling question. If you're just starting out, you're asking, who do I need to be? What skills do I need to get? So I think it's a relevant question. And where to start? Well, the first thing is, as a person, what kind of people make great coaches? Would be a good place to start. So people who are who have a desire to grow themselves, people who have a desire to transform, and who are interested about learning how to get better at doing this thing we call life. They probably want to have better relationships. They probably want to have a beautiful profession. If they're working a job, they may want to work for themselves. They may want to start their own business. They are people who like to solve problems, or they like to be in conversation with people, and they often find themselves in a support role. They often find themselves desiring to make a difference for people, desiring to help people. So they have kind of a natural inclination towards helping people, and they are very interested in transforming themselves, because that's the first step, is to transform yourself. As a coach, I like to look at coaching as a transmission of embodiment rather than kind of a process or a system in terms of, I like to work from my own embodiment. So if I'm helping someone in their life, I use my own experience. I use the transformation that I've created in my life to help them. I don't like coaching from a concept. I don't like coaching from a book that I read. I like coaching from my experience. And the reason why I do that is I don't ever want to be out of my league, in the sense I don't ever want to be speaking beyond my experience, because that gets me into a position where I'm going to be out of my league when I'm talking to potential clients. And I also don't want to coach from an inauthentic place. I don't want to give advice, or I don't want to tell people something that I don't know if is backed up or not. So, these are kind of fundamental things that I do naturally. And I think this is really important for coaches to come from that authentic place. So obviously that means if there's an area in your life that isn't working, that's your room for improvement, and you are your first client. So the kind of person is the person who sees themselves as their first client. They realize, look, I got to improve my life before I can help other people improve their life. And I'm going to know from experience how to do that, instead of having some book, having some theory. So they're committed to their own transformation. And then the second one is they do learn certain skills. So they do learn certain skills, and we're going to talk about some of those skills. But I just want to touch upon some of these comments here. So Abhishek said, "I've coached people before as a volunteer, but it's been a long time. So starting out now." Okay, got it. Good. And Marcielle, she said, "I work with different markets and want to switch between the audiences. Great, and have one message." Okay, we can talk about that. "I want to resonate with the client and attract through who I am, with voice, etc. And I found over the years, the more I transform myself, I transform the kind of coaching I do and people I serve." Yeah, absolutely. My audience changes all the time. I attract people depending on kind of what I'm interested in at the time. And it's not that people don't show up and then I have this background of stuff that I help people with and we work on that, but it's just sometimes I have a focus and I help people with that. And as I've worked on my own life in different areas, I noticed that I can offer more. So I've actually started working with people over longer terms. In the beginning, my contracts were quite small, maybe 6 weeks to 3 months, because I didn't know. Like, I came from a healing background where you would do one session and you'd start to work with people one session, and then they'd come if they want to work with you again, or they'd come if there was something still wrong. They'd leave when something didn't look like it was wrong, but they wouldn't stay because they wanted to build a life. They came because they had some problem they wanted fixing. So I had to transition out of that model and into more of a project-based model. to create a project, a life project for someone that they could commit to working on for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And that took time for me to develop the different areas of life that I could help them with. You know, I'd help people with relationships, or I'd help people with getting the most out of themselves, kind of tapping their full potential. I'd help people with their health in the beginning. I'd help people with their mental and emotional well-being. I'd help people with their finances. So all sorts of different things. You kind of gather this understanding of life as you go through your own, and you can give that away. So anything to add to that, Chris, before we kind of talk about skills and maybe how to transition in different markets and audiences if you're already a coach?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important there is to really appreciate that our whole entire life has been our training. Like that's the place that I stem from, is my whole entire life. Like every bit of experience I've ever been through my whole entire life is my training to help another human. So if someone asks me what's my qualification, it's life. It's being literally, life is a contact sport, and I've been through it. I felt it. And just that wisdom that we've achieved, that we've not achieved, that we've experienced through going through every single moment of our life, that in of itself is enough, right, to be supportive of another human. And I think another really important part of that is starting to recognize as well, as Kyle was just sharing, we can start to group together expertises to start to bundle in a greater way of supporting our clients. So when I first started to work with clients, I probably thought like, I've maybe got enough wisdom to work with a client for 6 weeks. It's like, and then I'll run out of content. It's like, you know, I can memorize enough coaching questions, or I can do enough to get them this far. And then what I realized is that I've got an infinite amount of wisdom to continuously keep helping someone, simply because I'm just one step ahead of them in their problem. So therefore I can constantly keep navigating them and being their guide. And I think it's also really important as well to start to reflect into, there will be themes of our life. There'll be particular themes of experiences that happen to us, whether it be you might have been through an illness that you've recovered from. You might have been through an incredibly traumatic childhood that you've recovered from, and you've uncovered the science behind what happened there and how to move through that. You might have created abundance, or you might have created a beautiful, loving relationship. You might have healed yourself. There'll be something that you've moved through that is incredibly valuable to someone else that perhaps you don't even value. And so that's one of the greatest threats to our value as a coach, is forgetting the fact that we are an expert in someone else's most valuable problem in their life. And so we don't even necessarily need to be an expert specifically in that problem, but an expert in how the mind works, in how the human works, in how being with another human, being compassionate, being empathetic, being in connection. And that's just one thing I wanted to touch on, Kai, is there is a deeper set of soft skills that is universal, that makes us transformational. And that's the ability to connect soul to another human. And that is the space in which the deepest transformation occurs. It's where we get out of our head. We're getting out of this strategic type, coaching from a book, coaching from a recipe book. And it's being empathetically, sympathetically, emotionally, spiritually connected to another client, soul to soul in that moment. That's where the deepest magic happens. So I wanted to just start to move in that direction, or just share a little bit about that, because even though you might have been through some amazing transformative experiences, your ability to connect with your client, that is what's going to do the heavy lifting. That's what always does the heavy lifting now. And since I've discovered that, I can help clients create results that I haven't personally achieved in my own life. Why? Because I understand how the science of transformation works. I understand how the mind works. And I can help clients transform beliefs that I haven't yet transformed, right? And I get taken care of in the process. So that's the other beautiful part of this, is when we help our clients through these problems, we automatically get taken care of in the process. And that's the beautiful thing that I look forward to the most, particularly when I get to a challenging situation where I'm thinking, how am I going to help my client with this? I know that there's the fundamental aspect of how a mind works. And I'm excited by that, because I know that their transformation is also going to, on some level, create my transformation, and vice versa. So there's just some extra things I wanted to add there, Kai, but I'll hand it back to you to take that over. And I'm glad you're enjoying that one. Sarah, good to see you here too.
Yeah, great points. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about coaching as well, is we do have the capacity to help people create results that we haven't personally created. And that being said, it's through understanding how a human being's mind really works and how to connect them to their true self, because their true self has the capacity to create whatever it is that they want to create. And oftentimes people are just a little bit off track. They got caught up in kind of some ideas, some thoughts that weren't necessarily relevant to them and got a little bit off track, and we can bring them back home. And from there, people are healthy inherently. People are in tune with life. People can connect. People aren't afraid. They're in a state of love. And from that place, you can create. Whereas from fear, you can just react. So one of the fundamental things that we can help people do is to come back into that space within themselves, find that, create a deeper connection to their true self, and then from there they can create something that can stand the test of what's going on outside of them. So yeah, Abhishek, how to connect with people better? What should we not do for this? Well, one of the things that here's one of the skill sets that we look at and we focus on when we kind of help people develop their coaching skills. Is listening is one of the most important things when connecting with your client. Now, listening is not just, I know the words that you're saying, I understand the meaning, I can repeat back to you what you said. Listening is like a whole body openness to really hearing something beyond even yourself. So when people talk, sometimes we listen and we're just looking for something that we believe is true. We're kind of listening for the thing that we agree with. Sometimes we listen for the thing that we disagree with. We're waiting to kind of have a controversial conversation, or sometimes we're waiting to have an agreeable conversation. Both of those limit what you can hear. You can look at your hearing as kind of like a glass. And if there's a stain in the glass, then there's parts of the glass that are not really receiving whatever you pour into it. So like this, when people are talking, if you have kind of any sort of presumptions of what they're meaning or where they're going, or if you're listening for something that you know, sometimes you're missing a lot of the conversation. And there's moments when you can just sink into the conversation, let go of needing to have a witty response, let go of needing to keep the conversation going. You can really fall into listening, and you're going to hear stuff insightfully about that person. And that's going to guide your process in what you say. It's going to come from them. It's going to be a response to how you insightfully understood them. And this is powerful, not just in a coaching sense, but in relationship in general. In any type of relationship, this is really important. But as a skill, as a coach, great coaches do this. And there are ways that you can develop this through different exercises and through changing the way that you think about listening. That's one way that we connect. And at a certain point, you just get to the point where you stop doing the things that make you disconnected. And the more you're connected to yourself, the easier it is to connect to your client. So that's kind of how we look at connection. And that is one of the skill sets. Now, one of the other skill sets is understanding. It's kind of more of an understanding, but understanding how insight works. Because insight in our process of transformational presence-based coaching is what does all the work. We don't use techniques. We don't use systems or this or that. We have kind of an understanding and a model that we coach from, but we're not using techniques. We're using presence to help create the conditions for insight. Because at the end of the day, even if you use a technique, it's only effective if the end result is an insight. Because what that person needs is their wisdom, which ultimately understands everything that's going on in their life. Like, I don't know what's going on in your life, but you do, and your wisdom does. And if I can help that speak to you, it's going to give you the right answer. So it's going to be much more effective than me and my knowledge and what I would do for my life. Helping you have that insight from within is going to be the most effective way to create transformation in your life. So it's about understanding how to create those conditions. And there is a certain set of skills that goes along with that, being able to create those conditions. It's kind of like gardening. You don't really, once you plant the seed, it's not about making the seed grow. It's about knowing how to create the right conditions. And that's what you become. As you go through your own transformational process, you become a transformational presence. The way that you show up to life becomes the conditions that people need to have insight. So let's kind of move forward. Now, in terms of kind of some other skills that are really important that I never used to like looking at this skill in my own business, because as a person who wants to serve and who's like passionate about helping people, the last thing that was on my mind was, well, I should think about selling. The last thing I almost had an aversion to selling, because it felt a little bit, in my mind, it felt a little bit off, a little bit, oh, I have to convince this person to work with me. And so I had like an aversion to selling in the beginning. And at a certain point, it all changed. And I realized the value of having the skill set of enrolling people into projects is that I end up getting to help them for a longer period of time, and I can actually serve them better if I have that skill. So it made sense to me that that is a skill that I need to get under my belt in order to actually serve my bigger mission, which is to impact people and to transform them. So I really looked at enrollment and how that process works. And that is one of the skill sets that I think most coaches struggle with. They may be a wonderful coach, but sometimes they have difficulties enrolling. And so you're a great coach, but if you don't have a client, it's difficult to make the difference that you're capable of making. So those two for me go hand in hand. A lot of people, they kind of shun themselves away from getting that skill handled. But for me, they actually support each other. They are both required, not just for your own personal success, but for you to not be a limitation in your ability to help others. You have to know how to enroll them and how to sell your services. So this is another skill that we focus heavily on. And that's something that you really need to get under your belt if you want to be not only a successful coach, but someone that is creating the conditions for them to impact people. So here we have a comment. Yeah, recently I found that from Nina, I found that being in a state of innocence has allowed me to move from victim to more creative state. Absolutely. Yeah, great insight. I've noticed that too when I'm just not making any judgments on myself, then oftentimes I'm in a much more creative present state and yeah, I'm not limiting myself. So there's a question from Nina. Could you, the seller role, be hindered by a belief that you don't deserve or are not good enough? Absolutely. Look, there's tons of things that get in the way of really being an effective salesperson or a person. I look at it like a person who's effective at service. Because at the end of the day, the sale is just to get to the point where you can serve. It's just an agreement between two people. We have to have an agreement for us to understand what we're up to. For us to work on any project, two people to work on one project together, you have to create an agreement. And the sale is actually just finding out what that agreement is and committing to it. And there's going to be an exchange. Obviously, there's an exchange of value. So what you give as the coach is valuable to the person who's signing up, but what they give to you is valuable to them, which is money. That is useful. They can use that to pay the bills. They can use that to buy groceries. They can use that to go on trips if they want. They can So this value exchange, the reciprocity has to be there for an agreement to really work. And yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why people have issues selling. Like, here's a couple that come to mind. So people have kind of a fear of rejection. They have a fear of rejection and they don't even offer what they have to give. People have a negative image of themselves. They don't really respect their value. So they don't believe in what the value is that they have to give, and they often diminish that. And then if they have the fear of rejection, they don't even put themselves out there. A lot of people have some amazing things to give, but they're caught in this world of who am I to be, you know, charging this or charging for my coaching? Like, who am I? And that comes down to just the way they think about themselves. Yeah, Robert said that's been a big one for me, fear of rejection. But I've seen that as I put myself out there, it just disappears. Can anyone relate to that? Give me a thumbs up if kind of fear of rejection is something you may notice in yourself or you've dealt with in the past. Give me on the emojis there. If you see the reaction button, you can put like a thumbs up in there if that applies to you. Yeah, I think it applies to every person when they're making something that they have that's special to them available to other people. Like, there's always this risk involved of revealing something that you value, something that you have been putting your time and energy that you care about into someone else's uh, in the line of sight of potential judgment or opinions, right? So that obviously can get in the way of you selling. That gets in the way of the price that you charge. That gets in the way of you uh, resonating with your fee. Like, this is a big one. A lot of people also have like an intellectual idea of what their fee should be, but their resonance in terms of what they really feel their value is different. And when I caught onto this, that there's like a feeling of what I believe the value of my time or my whatever I'm giving is. And if I feel really good with that, people feel really good with that. Like, you're actually, if you're in a sales conversation, you're the biggest influence. You're the way you feel about the sale, about your service, is the biggest influence on the way the person feels. Because if you are in a conversation with someone and they go to tell you the price for their thing and they go, yeah, it's $5,000. You're like, why are you nervous about that? That makes me a little suspicious. Like, if you're not fully comfortable with what you're doing and the value and what you're charging, then there's like this impression it gives off, and people they get a little suspicious. It's difficult to trust a person who's not okay with what they charge. Does that make sense? Just give me a thumbs up if that resonates. As the person maybe buying, does that resonate? That it's like, if someone were like nervous about selling, that you might be a little put off by that conversation. Yeah. So the way you feel about it is going to either be a support for the person or an obstacle for the person. And if you feel really good about the value and you feel really good, and that comes from a couple different things, your certainty and your ability to make an impact. If it's you're certain that you can make a difference in their life, that's going to give you a sense of, okay, look, it's like as easy as 1 + 2 = 3. Like, the work is going to be inside of my zone of genius, and I'm very confident about that. I'm actually certain. And also, the other thing that really makes the biggest difference is if you're really doing intake properly, you're not there trying to sell your stuff. You're there trying to understand the person's problem. And when you understand it better than they understand it, and you know that you can help, there's a certainty. And guess what's valuable to a person? Not my service, their dream. what they want is valuable to them. What I want is valuable to me. What I want for them, if it's completely disconnected from what they want, it's not valuable to them. You see, so if I'm just showing up, can't wait to get that sale, can't wait to get the sale, and I'm not listening to the person, and I'm not really connecting with them, and I'm not really understanding and resonating with what's going on in their life, there's no inherent value in coaching. It's a promise of something to come, but it's not like a tangible thing like a car, which has kind of practical uses. It's a promise of transformation, a promise of value. And that person needs to be able to connect what's important to them to the service to create what's called a perceived value. And a perceived value is what they believe their problem is worth if you were to solve it. Say that again. A perceived value is what the client believes the problem is worth if you were to help them solve it. If that level of perceived value is greater than your fee, that's gonna often result in a agreement being made and an enrollment and a client created. If that perceived level of value is lower than your fee, and oftentimes they're going to come up against what we call objections or resistance. So what's resonating with you guys? I want to check in with you. Just share, what are you seeing? Any other questions that are coming up for you? What are you noticing? And Marcel here. How do I pronounce your name? Marcel?
Marcel.
Marcel. Oh yeah, everyone say it together.
Yeah, great. Okay. So she said, I found I have given so much value up front and helped them. They felt good after it. So I need to stick to my process and generate this better. Yeah. One thing I also, one school of thought, which I kind of wasn't, it worked, but then it didn't work after a certain point, was just give, just serve, like serve, and I want to work with you. What I ended up doing was like giving away myself for free. And I realized that there had to be a process where I kind of understood what that person wanted to create in their life, and that we agreed to working on that together. And yes, it can come from service, but also you need to create a project. Like what's in service to the person is often creating a project. Because people, if they don't have what they want, you being able to find a way to help them get that is being of service. So I've sometimes given myself away to the point that they were like, oh, I'm just getting this for free. Like I remember I had a client that I was in the creation process of for 1 year. Who was a friend, and talking with him, helping him, serving him. I was the reason why he started his coaching business, and I helped him get his first client. And I figured, look, he's gonna, sign me because that's what I'm doing. I'm serving him. He sees the value. A year went by. We were about to sign a contract for a 6-month mentorship that I did at the time. And he messaged me like 2 days later. He's like, oh, by the way, I just want to let you know, I signed up with this other coach. I was like, oh, right. Interesting. Why? Because this other coach created a project with him and he didn't overgive. And it was a big lesson. It's like, oh, so I actually he could get that for free from me, and that's okay. I was happy to give, but there was something about that was off, that once I corrected that, it doesn't happen. People value my time, people value what I do. And that was a big lesson, because we can get caught in this idea of like altruism leads the way, being in service. And it is true, but you can be in service without giving yourself away. Like you need to also create a healthy boundary in your relationships, so you're not wasting your time. So there's boundaries as well that need to be set as a coach, a professional boundary, where you're not chasing after people. Cool. Chris, I'd love to pass the mic on to you. Maybe you have some insights or just another direction we could go.
Yeah, thanks, Kai. So I think a really important piece that we touched on was value. And a key part of what creates clients is knowing what a client's values are, knowing what's important to them. So if we don't know what's important to a client, it's kind of disrespectful to them. It's our job to know what's important to them. And so first of all, just caring about another human will allow you to find out what their values are. What's important to you and why is that important? So deeply understanding what's important to a client is going to get you most of the way there to knowing what they value. Now, another really important part about the enrollment process or the client creation process is a lot of the time a client won't know how valuable a problem is to them. Like, for example, you might say to someone who's in a full-time job doing something they don't love, and you might ask them, so the problem they've got is, you know what, I just want to find my dream job. I just want to do what I love and get paid for it. And you might ask this person, okay, great, that sounds like it's something that's important to you. What would you pay for that? If I could wave a magic wand and transform that right now, what would that be worth to you? And for most people, they'll be like, oh, that's a good question. They don't know the answer to that. Now, for me, when I was back in my engineering career, when I was incredibly disenchanted with doing what I was doing, I probably would have paid $500,000. If I had it, I would have paid $500,000. I probably would have paid $1 million to create that because that was so important to me. It's the same thing if you ask someone, if I could introduce you to your soulmate and find you the love of your life right now, what would you pay? Millions. I would sell everything and I'd pay. So there are some things that people are really, really clear about, and there are some things that people are not clear about. Coaching sometimes is one of those things that people are not clear about. Because if they've never worked with a coach before, or if they've never solved that problem, they've never thought about what price tag would they put on it to solve it. Is this making sense? So it's very difficult for someone to sometimes say yes to you if they haven't fully wrapped their head around how much is this actually worth to me? And that's a really great question. And that's a question I often, a lot of the time, I don't expect my clients to know the answer to that. But I see it as my job to help them find the answer to that, because as soon as they know the answer to that, they can rationalize my fee. So one of the things I want to share, I want to draw you a picture here because I think this is going to shed some insight into what we're talking about. So I'm just going to share my iPad, and I'm just installing an update here on my end for Zoom. So while that's installing, here we go, all good. Let's share my iPad. Okay, let me know if can you guys give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can see my white screen? Can you guys see a white screen there? Beautiful. Okay, great. So I'm going to draw you a picture. And this picture, I think, is probably the best and the simplest picture that describes what we are really doing when it comes to a client journey, when it comes to working with a client. And really it starts out over here. We're basically starting from a client, frowny face, being stuck with some kind of problem. Now, we need to know what is their problem. Ideally, if you're working with someone's life's most important problem, you're dealing with their most valuable problem, typically. Now, what you're wanting to do as a coach is you're wanting to take that person from where they're stuck in their problem all the way across to where they're experiencing the solution to their problem, which would now be your promise, what you're helping a client with. So really what we're doing here is we're taking a client all the way from here, all the way over to here. That's really what we're doing. Now, this is going to be different for every client. For some clients, they might feel depressed. They might not have enough money. It could be it could be that they're lonely. It could be that they've got an illness. This will be whatever problem that you have an expertise in solving, you're now going to help them take a series of steps towards solving their problem. So there'll be a series of steps that you can kind of guide them through generally that'll take them from their problem to their promise. So this is the process. So this is the process that you are going to take a client through to give them value. Now, it is this process here, the gap between the problem and the promise, that is going to be the value of your coaching services. So this, for example, this could be they want to go from depressed to being happy. They might want to go from having no money to having lots of money. They might be going from having an illness to being healthy. So we're really wanting to define what is this journey that we're taking a client on. Now, if you are only working on a really, really small problem, then it might, as Kai said before, you might have one session with you. You might be working with the client session by session. Whereas if you define this transformational journey where you've got lots of different things you're helping them with on a bigger journey, well, that's potentially going to be a 3-month, a 6-month, a 12-month agreement to help them create all of that. So the scope of the project is bigger. So that means that the value goes up. If you're working on a really small project, the value will go down. So this is where we're wanting to, when we're doing an intake conversation or an enrollment conversation with our clients, we wanted to find out what's the greatest project that we feel qualified and competent to help them with, because that is going to maximize the opportunity for us to work with them and then work backwards from there. That's how I recommend working on this. So really what we're left with here is where we've really got to get clear on, okay, great, what's their problem? What's the promise they're helping them with? And then importantly here is the solution. I've just drawn this here as, 6 steps, but, you might have 3 steps, you might have 12 steps, you might have a bit more of it might be more free flow, it might not be so linear. It could be more of a general process where you're working on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things, and you're working on them all in parallel. It doesn't necessarily need to be linear. It could just be working on all of them at the same time. So this is really what we're doing. And when a client, and this is how this sort of links. Well, when a client gets really, really clear on what your solution is, there's a really special thing that happens. What happens is, in order for a client to work with us, really what they need to experience here is trust. So a client needs to trust, they need to trust you, they need to trust themselves, and they need to trust in your process. Now, when all of these 3 things become present, what happens is your process becomes like a foundation. Your process now becomes the thing that instead of them just needing to take your word for it, they can now see that there's actually a process that you and them are co-creating and participating in and facilitating. So now most of their attention now and their trust is gone into the process, and they can now see, we're working on a particular process. We're using a framework. So there's less of a need for them to trust you, which means that they get over their own limiting beliefs. They don't need to check your resume. They don't need to look up your LinkedIn profile. There's less of a need for them to trust themselves, because they realize that, this is universal. It works for anyone. It's not just because, I'm not too old, I'm not too young. It's not because I'm a man. It's not because I'm a woman. It's a universal process. So when we start to understand that this is really what's going on when we're creating a client, when we understand that it's this trust that's being created here as a result of them trusting you, trusting themselves, and trusting the process, a client is going to experience more trust. And when they see the project that you're working on, they're going to experience more value. So really what we've got here is the 2 ingredients of value plus trust is the equation that equals clients. It's a really simple equation. When I got this, it transformed everything about client creation into a really, really simple way of thinking. Okay, they've got to trust themselves. They've got to trust me. They've got to trust what we're working on. And they need to have a project that they value incredibly. And when they value the project enough, we're in business. So that's just really, really simple. And it doesn't need to be any more complex than this fundamentally. So I just wanted to check in to see, is this resonating? Can you kind of see how that this simplifies the whole game a lot? It really kind of just helps us get out of the, I've read dozens and dozens of sales books that have got sales scripts, and there's all these things like you've got to reverse qualify your client, you've got to do this, and you've got to, so it takes us out of this world of techniques and strategies, and it just takes us into a really simple understanding of the science of, what creates trust, what creates value. And this is the client journey, that when we show a client what their own journey is, they're certain of the process, they become certain of themselves, they become certain of us, and it makes it far easier for them to say yes. So I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Kai, because I know we've only got about 10 minutes to go, but I love to check in and see what's been resonating, what has been helpful from this diagram.
Hey guys, just type in the chat. What are you getting? What kind of insights are you having, and what's changing for you in the way that you think? Because that ultimately is really what makes the difference. How you think about things like selling, things like helping people with coaching. It really is, it's the determining factor on how successful you're going to be, on how you're going to be able to do it the way it works. So it's always great to have these feedback insights, if you will. And yeah, Marcel, comes back to certainty. Absolutely. Yeah. There's something trustable about certainty. Something trustable about certainty. And yeah, totally agree with Marcel. Sarah says, I was having this conversation with my partner yesterday. And yeah, it's nice to have you back in the room here, Sarah, coming through Project Genesis. Nice to see you back. You had a question that I thought was kind of interesting that maybe we could dive into a little bit. You said, my journey actually kickstarted with U2 Legends in July last year, and then I invested in a mentor for 7 months after that. I've just finished that program, but I'm still yet to secure my first paid client. Can you guys please speak into this a little bit? Well, I'd love to maybe get your take on that. Would you be open to sharing a little bit about kind of what's going on, and I guess, yeah, maybe what you feel might be preventing you from getting a paid client?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I guess I did my 7 months after all the epic learnings that I had with you guys, and it was kind of a long-term, long plan launch program. So it was meant to take a lot more time in kind of getting the clients, but it was meant to kind of pay off in the end. And then kind of got to that point and it didn't work. And so the feelings I've been having now is, oh my gosh, I've invested many, many thousands of dollars and I'm not able to secure clients. But at the same time, I'm brand new, and the amount that I've learned in this period of time has been huge. And one of them was even almost oversharing and over teaching. So I actually had a group and it had 130 women in it. And you would think surely you should be able to really be able to pick some people out from there and help create the impact and the transformation that they want. But I've recently been coming up with up against an interesting thing that's floating around in my world, which is you are not your brand and identity and brand. And I think I was probably oversharing a little bit too much vulnerably about what happens in my world, which I think created that uncertainty. Rather than, so I don't know, it's kind of been really messy, as you can tell as I'm speaking it out, but I think I wanted to more so ask the question that you guys don't seem to be super huge and always posting on social media, and I wanted to know, has it always been that way for you guys, or is it more so because you're word of mouth in business now, and what's your take on getting or attracting clients outside of social media?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's the real question a lot of people have, because actually I didn't have a business card or website when I built my 6-figure healing business, and I still don't have a business card or a website. I have a multiple 6-figure coaching business. So it's a question that people have. Why aren't these social media things working? Why aren't tactics working? They work for some people when they have the right kind of, I guess, understanding of mass marketing, which means mass consciousness. And you can get to that point where that works. If you want to scale, you have to get to that point where you start understanding kind of mass psychology. But when it comes to getting your first client, how I see that process is a lot of people are too busy marketing to really just connect. And I'm sure you have 5 people right now you could think of that you could make a difference to. Like, I'm sure you even know these people. And instead of thinking about how can I get them to be my client kind of from an intellectual place, you want to connect to your heart and think, how could I give them something that would touch their lives? You want to connect from a heart-centered place and like this genuine desire to give. And then you want to have a conversation with them about just what's going on for them. And that can be done through an invitation through social media. Like you could do a share or something in your social media and say, hey guys, if anyone's struggling with this problem that I struggled with, I'd be happy to chat with you about that. If you want to, set up an hour to talk, I'm happy to do that. And then you have a conversation that way. And then you go through a process of trying to understand what's going on and connecting with them. And the trust is really created through the connection, through the desire to help them. And at some point, in the beginning, most people enroll people through just one-to-one conversations because it's intimate and people can build a lot of trust in there. And once you get to that point where you can sell at that level, you will start to understand how to sell to scale. I think a lot of people are trying to sell to scale before learning how to just sell, having a conversation with someone. Like, I moved across the world in 2018. I moved from Canada to Bali. I had at that point not built any kind of reputation anywhere, but I know if I go anywhere in the world, I can get into a conversation with someone, I can create community, and clients want to work with me. Community is really important, to have people, to create spaces where people are able to experience you and able to be a part of something and able to connect and able to serve, kind of see the value of being around you. But it comes down to, how can I get into an intimate conversation with that person? And how can I find a way to serve them? And how can I invite them into creating a project for their life? So there's a couple different steps in that. But all the marketing is just to get you to the point where you could sit in a conversation with someone and have them say yes or no to your service. So if you don't have that down, marketing is really not useful. It's great to create community for when you do have that down, but if you don't have that down, that if you don't have the certainty that I could sit in a conversation with 5 people and out of that 2 people would say yes, then there's something in the enrollment process that needs to get tweaked to make all your marketing pay off. And that's great. It's great that you have 130 women. I mean, that's amazing that you're able to get that number of women into community with you and to be in a conversation with you. And there's probably just something to tweak on your enrollment process.
Yeah. I think you kind of highlighted even where I could, because it was a 5-week container. So it was actually a process that I invited people to come through just for a set kind of amount of time.
Yeah.
And then you said, there's probably 5 people, and it's like, yeah, if I actually probably just reached out and connected a little bit more in different places, they could be there. Because in 2, I've had 2, what I would say real like enrollment process type conversations, where by the end of it, these 2 women are sitting and they are so excited, and their energy went from being whoop to just completely up. Yes, I'm in, like, I want this. There was no price objections. There was everything was all good. But when it actually came down to the commitment of it, it would fall over just at the last kind of straw. So I don't know if there was just an issue in that part.
Sure. Here's a little thing that is useful to know. When someone says they are ready to sign up, they're not your client. They are your client when the money's in the bank. And people talk all the time. People have a lot of ideas and great ideas, and they make all sorts of statements and declarations, and they never follow through. So at that point, when you have them say, oh my God, I want to do it, you say, wait a minute. I want to just make sure here. You actually want to challenge that excitement, yes, and get down to a real commitment. Because people, you can get people excited and get them to say they'll do various things. And then when the excitement's gone, when that emotion's gone, they haven't really made that decision. That's why people see these types of excitement conversations fall off and the person doesn't follow through. They disappear, they ghost them, because they didn't really get down to a grounded level yes, a grounded decision that was made. And that's where they need to get to actually make the commitment to send the money. And also people have all sorts of things around money. It's great to think of the dream when money is not involved on the table. But if you're holding, if you have to hold $2,000 in your hand and you say, okay, do you want this? And you're holding $2,000 in your hand and they have to give up that money. It's different than if you're theoretically talking about them paying $2,000. People have all sorts of stuff around money that needs to get worked through. And then other people don't. Other people value transformation more than money. It's interesting, as I started studying money more, I realized there's two kinds of people. There's people who look at the price on the right-hand side of the menu before they decide what they're going to eat. There's people who look at what they want to eat and they don't even look at the price. I'll tell you why they're different. Because the person who's looking at what they want to eat is not making what they want dependent on something. The person who's looking at the price tag before they buy something is making what they desire dependent on some outside factor. I like to work with the people who look at the left side of the menu first. That's just my preference. And I've honestly been clear within myself that I really just attract those people now. I used to attract the right side of the menu, the people who make what they want in their life dependent on, is it affordable? Like, is my dream affordable? I don't know. You can't get to where you really want to be if that's your mindset. I'm sorry. But living in a scarcity mindset is not going to create an abundant life. So that's the difference, right? It's like, if I genuinely want something, my mindset is I'm going to do what it takes to create the means to get that, not the other way around. I'm going to let this price be, I'm going to let my dream be dependent on the price. And maybe that's just something that needs to get clarified. I think when every coach clarifies that with themselves, that the kind of client that they want is a person who values transformation more than they value money. Guess what? The people who don't value the transformation over money, they stop showing up. And that's a lot of time saved on your side and their side, because they're going to talk and they're not going to walk. I would rather not have a conversation. I don't want to waste my time or theirs. I want to be in service, and I want to be available to be in service. And, that's just the clarity I have within myself. So I attract a certain kind of client. It took me a long time to get there, but that's a tip from years of enrollment processes and finally changing something within myself in consciousness that let the kind of person that I'm really able to help and I really love to help show up. And I just started repelling people who, that's what marketing is, right? Marketing is attracting the clients that are right for you and repelling the ones that aren't. So guess what? If you understand this within yourself, that look, the people who aren't my client are the ones who really either can't afford it or don't value their own transformation enough to justify affording it. I don't need people who have a bunch of money, but I need people who are resourceful. Like the kind of person who says, oh, I can't afford it. I don't want to start the agreement on a non-resourceful state. I don't want to start from, I can't do this. I'd like to help them get through that, but they have to end up making that jump to get into the agreement. And then You know, I also, a lot of people in pricing their service, they want to make it affordable. Understand the kind of mindset that you're catering to. It's not that you don't want to help everyone. It's that for whatever reason, people are trapped in their mindset around money and they, you know, they aren't willing to help themselves. Do I want to be spending my time in that conversation, or do I want to be spending my time in a conversation with people who take action? And I'm all for being of service. I give out lots of free time, but I'm not for wasting my time and wasting my energy and wasting their time and wasting their energy. I'm not about that. So I'm not against being of service. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be of service and understand to be in the highest level of service, you have to kind of get real with yourself and others at times so you don't waste time. You have a short life to live. You should be aware of how precious your time and energy is. I am. That's one thing that will make you more valuable in the way you show up and more certain in your value. Is know what your time's worth to you. Cool. We'll just finish off these little questions here. And, you know, Chris and I have another webinar next week that we're going to be sharing a little bit more about our work and how we help people, coaches, people become coaches, to learn the skill sets, what those skill sets are, and also to help coaches, you know, get clients and work on their business. So Heidi is in here. She's gone through what we call Project Revolution. Robert's also been here through Project Revolution. And yeah, there's another opportunity to join us in a round of a 6-month program that we have. So next week, we're going to talk about that, just go into depth, and you can come and see if it's the right fit for you, if it's something that would resonate with you, and if it's something that we resonate with you to take you guys through that process, then we can have a conversation about that if you guys want. But what I would recommend is to come that call next week. It's going to be at the same time, and we're going to be posting like a registration link. So Chris, do we have a registration link now, or do we have a place where they can go to sign up for mailing list so they don't miss out on getting that registration link? What do we have available?
The easiest way to do that would be if you guys want to just drop your email in the private chat here, I can get you guys added to that list. It's not set up yet. Our VA is just setting it up today. So if you guys want to be invited into that, yeah, just type your email in now and I can get you guys manually added to that. So just shoot that through. Just click at the bottom in the chat. If you just go send email to Chris, and you can just drop your email there and I'll get you added and we'll get you invited to that so you get access to that.
Awesome. That's a great way to go about it. So guys, just type your email in the chat. If you want to come and join us, if you want to learn more about coaching and about, you know, how to make a bigger impact from presence, and also how to get more clients. We're going to be talking about that next week. Cool. And Sarah, did that help? Just to check in with you, did that resolve anything for you?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Kai. It's kind of one of those things which I'm mulching over. I think where it's really coming to for me is the fact that I've only had a couple of conversations, and every time I've had the conversation, I've really learned, okay, what went wrong there. And I think you kind of just highlighted some little points to me. And I love the analogy about the menu and what side of the menu you're looking at. It's a good, it's a really good one. But yeah, it's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, a person could be the kind of, you know, price first menu person, but in the conversation, you have to create such a enticing project for them that they become a person who's only interested in the left side of the menu. Like, people can actually change. That's the beautiful thing about coaching. People aren't stuck. They're not static. You can have a conversation that helps them see things differently. And it is one of your jobs as a coach, is to help people over their own price objections. Because guess what? That's an area of their life that if they don't handle, they're always going to be putting their dreams off to some other excuse. It may not be money, it could be time. It could be, I have this commitment, it's gonna be something. But basically you wanna help people get beyond making excuses for just creating what they want. And that's what the analogy is meant to point to. It's not even about money. It's about, are you able to decide what you want independent of what people think of you, independent of having the resources? And can you just make that, can you just give yourself that? You just be real with yourself that you really want that, and that's okay. And you don't need to justify it, and you don't need to make excuses to not have it. You can just find a way. That's where people get amazing results. When they get to that place inside themselves and they say yes, they take off. If they say yes and they're not in that place, I find they don't get the kind of results that they're capable of. So it's also a way to kind of just create some structure around the work too. All right, well, it looks like we have a couple emails here that we are going to be adding you to the list, letting you know about that next webinar. And thank you guys for coming today. That's been fun to chat with you and to be in conversation with you. And we might do this a couple more times in the future here. So just, yeah, even if you want to stay in touch, if you don't plan to come to the webinar, but you want to stay in touch and find out what our next things are that we're going to do, just type your email in the chat and we'll get you on our list and we'll send you out any updates that we have. So thank you guys for today and have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Or
guys. See
evening.
you guys soon.
Or afternoon.
Yeah, or evening, afternoon. Cheers, guys. That was fun.